Fan scriptures
on air.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fan Scripture On Air podcast. My name is Drunk Kid, and with me I have my co-host Darth Proteus.
Yo, we in the house again, and today we've got a very special episode for you guys. But before we get into our subject matter, let's take our time, as usual, to recap some of the recent events that have been going on in the Fan Scripture umbrella. Why don't you start, Jorg?
Fan Scripture umbrella, yes. Well, Thor, from our friend Jeff, has finished. Feels kind of surreal having that now, but you know, we finally have a Thor project and it's out. It's pretty great. I know you were a part of that. Proteus, you were a local.
Yeah, I might be a little biased, but you know, kind of kino. So if y'all, you know, everyone did a great job. Jeff did a great job writing, and hope maybe the PDF will be out soon. Although I guess given how long it takes to make one of those, well, that might be a while. But hey, at least we have it as is. And speaking of PDFs, before we talk about some other live stuff that's going on, we've actually had 3 PDFs drop lately, and not for the lack of our hard work. For example, Chucky dropped the PDF for Legion of Superheroes. Good on him. I know that was a lot of work, especially because he had to rework some things at the end and change some things. But for those of you who have read it, you probably already know, and I've read over some of it already, and I think it's really nice. And having to change a few lines from a certain person aside, I'm sure it was all pleasant to work on. And of course, I finished the ones for Born to Run, which actually was fairly easy because I think it was almost perfect as it was. You know, yeah, you were part of that too, Jork, of course, and I think everyone did a great job. I basically just had to tune up a few lines here and there, get the formatting right, and yeah, that was pretty much it. And I also dropped the one for the Proteus cut, which was, of course, you know, my updated version of the original Snyder Cut script, which better left unsaid, I suppose. But you know, if you wanna watch a definitive version, watch the actual Justice League Snyder Cut when it comes out, or read that, or both. You know, that would be a great version. But it's essentially in a completely different movie, but it's much better than the original. So recommended. Again, totally not biased, I know, but I think it's pretty good. And why don't you start us off again with some other live stuff we've still got ongoing for the moment?
Yeah. So we also had JLA, which is Justice League of America by Hydra Looney, finish a big boy project that we finally have out of the way. Definitely recommend seeing that. Hydra Looney busted his ass for this. Let me tell you, being behind the scenes for Justice League, we tried to get this whole Justice League thing done way earlier, but stuff just kept getting in the way and dumb stuff, and then Mike Barreras pulled up the screenshot.
It was no one's fault.
Yeah, but no, we finally have it out, and we're happy with the product. Spider-Man started. And I don't want to brag, but the guy who plays Takia, you know, he's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty epic. I think you do it really well. I think the first episode went smashingly well. Everyone's doing great. I think we have a great working relationship in the writers' room, and I can't wait for everyone to see some of our future episodes very, very soon. And of course, we've, you know, Jameson, of course, has I feel like we previously mentioned it before, maybe we haven't. Jameson Rise once again, and it's good to be back. Honestly, I missed it, and I'm looking forward to doing more episodes with the guys in the future, because it's always, even with how dark the subject matter comes at time, it kind of feels like a hangout project in a lot of ways. You know, like there's a breeziness to it that you can just sort of latch onto. I think it really helps immerse you in the time period that it's set in.
Yeah. So, wait, and then I believe, right, Constantine, that started on DC Fan Scripture.
We've certainly got some imaginative people behind the scenes there, and one imaginative writer / director in Ruslu. I really admire the way he tries to throw things at the screen in his typical style. So I don't really feel like I have much to comment there, especially because I, again, do have a bias there as I'm playing the main character. But I think so far it's going really well, and I hope people are enjoying it, despite it being something that's pretty different for what we normally do. But I think that's a good thing, definitely. And Evil Dead 4 ended a while ago. Of course, that's a round of applause to Hunter for that one, because I know that it had slowed down for a while. Some life complications. Everyone has had them this last year, needless to say, but I'm really glad we finally finished it, and I think it's one for the books, because it's really fun, action-packed, and I think everyone did a great job on that one. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I definitely would.
I think that's everything, apart from the other FS Plus shows that have been ongoing, like the Meteor Tide Universe shows, Plasma Man, Star Forger. Very cool stuff coming for those. TBHC probably ongoing, and I think that's actually everything. So why don't we just let's just jump right into it and get into the topic of today's episode with our guest. Say hello, Jettu.
Hello, hi.
So we're here, of course, to talk about Hulk. So why don't you start, Jerk? But we're gonna try to ask you. We're gonna just try and ask you about just general things like what inspired you to make this project and how you think it's going.
I think it's went pretty well, and my main inspirations were definitely a lot of the older Hulk stuff, like with the Lou Ferrigno and all that. I definitely really liked what I saw there, and that was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that makes sense, and I can definitely see that inspiration. I would still argue that, at least in terms of like live action adaptations, as long as you keep in mind the time period it was out and the budget that they had, because they basically just painted a big guy green. But I still think in terms of character, that's like the best live action adaptation of him to this date. And I hope one day we'll eventually get to the point where we have something rivaling that. But I think that you've done a good job of coming pretty close to that myself, if I do say so myself. I think that you've certainly given him a lot more emotional depth than most modern versions of him do. Even like some of the modern comics, and that's coming from someone who actually likes, like, say, the 2011 Red Hulk arc is one that I like a good bit, but it is a little lacking in that department.
Yeah. I definitely say I definitely like when Hulk is depicted as more like a mindless monster, to give like more legitimate reasons as to why Bruce Banner fears becoming Hulk. Because if you don't really know what Hulk is going to do once Bruce becomes him, so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to show why he fears Hulk and all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I think it's been a good. I would have to say, like, playing him has been interesting, because I knew that you always wanted to very distinctly portray his two personalities, because, and I do agree with you on one thing, it should very much feel like when he transforms that he's very much turning into a completely different person, because really they are two completely different people battling for control inside his mind at all times.
Yeah.
And did you have anything you wanted to ask him, Jerk, before I continue? I don't want to be a microphone hogger here.
What did you think of 2003 Hulk?
No, I didn't think it was horrible, but it's definitely not the best thing, It's just kinda...
I surprisingly heard a lot of mixed thoughts about 2003 Hulk. Like, a lot of people are split on it.
It was clear that they wanted to do the leader at the end, but like they just weren't able to make a sequel, so they never delivered on that. So I think the leader as a villain is he's kind of slept on. He has a bit of a goofy design, but he tends to be another one of those larger than life villains that has all these big plans, and one of the big evil mad scientist kind of characters.
Oh yeah, I definitely I agree with that, and I think that I really like the angle that you took with him because he still feels like a character that you could very much see in like a more modern movie, but it also very much harkens back to like classic monster movies like Dr. Frankenstein and stuff. And I like the way that Noah portrays him. It feels kind of like and this is a compliment. I assure you that it feels like the bald evil guy from Ant-Man if he had an actual character.
Yeah, my idea for the leader was a guy who takes every opportunity to experiment. Everything's just another step in the scientific process. Everything he does is very calculated.
Yeah, science has its stepping stones.
Yeah.
And I also like to think of him, if you agree with me here, that he's sort of like almost like a dark mirror of what Bruce could be if his morals ever slipped.
Yeah, that's another thing a villain should be. They should be the polar opposite of your hero.
Yeah, I agree with that. Generally, you want to see like some like the negative aspects that you see in your hero in them, because that's how you establish a firm connection between them. If there's no real connection between your hero and the villain, like, I mean, it can work, but it won't feel as organic or as natural or even as interesting. And what would you say that I know that you said that some of your older stuff was like some of your main inspirations for the character. What was like your first time, one of your first experiences with the character that made you really interested in him, that would sort of led you to say, hey, I should write a Hulk project?
I definitely liked how he was done in the first Avengers, especially the fact when Loki. That's the first scene where you first see him transform, and you see Bruce lose control. That's kind of what made me realize that this is very, very cool, very interesting, and I thought it would be something that should be explored a bit more. Explore the dynamic between these two people, beings.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he was generally handled well in that, especially because especially considering how it was originally intended to be portrayed with the Incredible Hulk. I actually think Edward Norton might, I don't know if this is like a hot take, I think he might be a little closer in terms of accurately portraying the character than Mark Ruffalo, but the movie around him is so crap that it really doesn't matter if he is doing a better job at playing that character, because nothing else is very good.
Yeah, I definitely do like Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, but I think they go a bit too far with the awkward geek,
I think it started out okay with a good balance, like in the first Avengers especially. It's very clear that while he can have a little bit of awkward humor, like he's still very intelligent. I think it sort of really plummeted after Age of Ultron, though, and especially in Endgame, like there's still a little bit of that there, but he mostly just kind of feels like a goofball.
Yeah, in Endgame, he's pretty much just a joke character. Not really much to him anymore.
He hits you with the dab and the nay.
Thank God that came out before the whip nay guy went off. But that's a story for another time.
Sicko mode.
And did you have what was your experience like, writing it? Like, I know everyone has a different way of writing things, especially how did you what were the biggest things that you pulled from, like, when you were writing it, and how did you sort of lay it out? I know you said some of the more older Hulk things were your inspiration, but in terms of comics, what would you say you pulled the most from?
Definitely Immortal Hulk, one of the more recent Hulk comics, and I definitely used a lot of inspiration from that, because I thought it was kind of cool, and it had a lot of good ideas. And I also had more of a laid back kind of writing approach. I write when I feel like it, and I wait until a good idea comes to me for scenes, and just kind of put whatever I have in my head down on the paper.
Oh yeah, definitely. I kind of understand that. I'm very much I guess I'm similar in a way because I'm the kind of guy who I'll get some. I'll wait till some inspiration hits because it never hits when you want it to. It's always when it's most inconvenient. You have to put aside what you're doing to really sit down and write. But I'm definitely the kind of person who will just like open up the Google Doc and write what pops into my head and tweak it later.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of the better ways to write is that you just put it down first and then fix it later. And yeah.
Write it first, fix it later. The motto for PDF making.
Uh-huh. There were multiple different ways that Hulk had ended, and I kind of threw out multiple different endings. One ended more on a comedic note, where She-Hulk realized that she can break the fourth wall, and it kind of ended like that. But that felt more like a MCU movie ending, where they would just kind of end on a joke.
I mean, that does it does fit with her character in the comics, but yeah, at least in terms of like the tone that you were going for here, like that would have to be reserved for like her own movie. It doesn't really work when you're trying to go for all serious, but at least the point is you recognize that and you changed. I'm actually excited for people to see the ending that we actually went with, because I think it's a lot more tone appropriate and a lot better. Not to crap on you or anything, of course.
Yeah. I get it. The ending I went with, it was meant to be, I'm gonna be honest, it's meant to be more of a just like a surprise gut punch. It definitely inspired by Infinity War's ending where the villain wins, and I think endings like that tends to give the villain more credibility. It tends to make them more of a threat if they end up winning. So,
I do agree in that way, and I always think that villains who win can often be the most interesting, because even if they're completely wrong, and even if you understand them, you realize that they're completely incorrect. They just have emotional motivations that make sense for who they're supposed to be. I think it definitely makes the stakes feel higher, because when your heroes lose and you're still going to see their stories continue, you actually don't know if the more bad things will continue to happen to them. I think that one thing that the inherent flaw of like when you're making huge, big franchise filmmaking is that the inherent nature of it is, because you know that people have year-long contracts for multiple films, you know that unless they want to lose money makers, they're never actually going to take huge risks. That's why like it took like the majority of the MCU to actually kill any main characters. In fact, I think up until the only even notable deaths that you might consider might be like I guess Yondu in Guardians 2. I wouldn't even really I do not count Quicksilver's death in Age of Ultron as big, because that's a joke. That is a complete joke.
Dude, Quicksilver is such a joke in the MCU. He's like, I must protect my sister, and then he gets fucking shot.
And it doesn't even make sense why. Also, the bullets went completely through him, so like Hawkeye and that kid should be dead. Like they should be dead too. He literally would have done nothing. But I guess
no, dude, he went for the bullets and was like, meow, meow, ah, and then he took the bullets. He's like, I stopped him. I saved you, Clinton. I saved you because I must protect my sister.
And I guess just before this tangent goes on too long, I'll just say that because he has super speed, couldn't he have just like pulled the Flash and like turned the bullets around or something?
Well, momentum wise, that wouldn't work. But like, I feel like he could have done like something infinitely better, like move Quicksilver and the kid. But I don't know.
Yeah, he could have done that too. Why didn't you just push him out of the way?
Just move Quicksilver and the kid. How hard is it? You know what he did in like the beginning of the film? He fucking launched Hawkeye like a few meters or feet away. Can't you just do the same to the Hawkeye and the kid again?
Well, I think trying to point out the many plot holes in that movie, you could do an entire podcast episode about that. But that's I digress. Anyways, I totally agree with what you're saying there, and I think that I like the way that I hate to use the term subversion of expectations because it's such a dirty phrase these days, especially when you're talking about movies. But I definitely think the ending
Yeah.
did that for a lot of people when they saw it, and I hope so.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna say this. Definitely one of my favorite scenes to write was the fight between Hulk and A-Bomb, because I had that idea since I started writing it to do that scene, and I thought that would be that would just be a good emotional moment. So I kind of put that in, and I thought, and another favorite scene is when Bruce and Rick are talking after the fact, and you just kind of see them kind of bonding, becoming friends, and just talking about their past, which I think it's just a good character moment that I enjoyed writing. So.
Oh yeah, I enjoy that too, and it definitely I think the way it definitely ended, and I like the way that Bruce and Rick sort of bond after that. It's sort of like it's sort of like your typical unlikely friendship, but I think it really works for the context of this.
Yeah,
Bruce doesn't really have anyone besides Jennifer, so it's probably makes a lot of sense that, hey, his new bestie would be someone who actually has the literal exact same problem that he does, minus the losing your mind when you're transformed.
I always envisioned the gang as kind of memey as this is in FS, that they would become sort of like a found family. They would just kind of be a bunch of misfits that find common ground and sort of become friends and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I understand that. Considering that I'm a sucker for feel good stories myself, I'm always gonna like stuff like that. And is there anything else you wanted to ask, Jordan? Because I think we've covered quite a bit today already.
Anything else to cover? Oh yeah. Here's a question. I'm not sure if this is right to ask, but would you ever entertain the idea of a Hulk sequel?
I've had a couple of concepts in my head. I've thought about where we could go, and it's definitely so far it seems like it's going to be a lot like the Batman story No Man's Land, where factions have risen up in this chaotic city, and it's all full of but this time it's all full of like gamma powered people, and
Interesting. Well, we can't wait to see that if that ever manages to happen. And I definitely think you've earned it if you have, because I think we really knocked it out of the park with this one. I know it took you a while to like fully flesh out Hulk, but I think the effort was well worth it. And major props to you, sir.
Thank you. But it honestly would not be half as good without all of the actors. Because if it was just me, I feel like it would be kind of lackluster, because my dialogue tends to be kind of samey. I don't really characters' personalities don't really shine through when I do the dialogue. So
nothing to be ashamed of. We all have our strengths. Dialogue is something that I sometimes have to struggle with too, especially when I do pre-written stuff, because I often have to rewrite things because they either sound a little hokey, or I could say it better, or could be shorter and less verbose. It's a lot of things, but I think I speak for the entire cast when we say we are happy to help, because I think it's been really fun to work on. And I was happy to bring Dr. Crane's Bruce Banner to life.
Yeah, it is basically how you describe it is just like it's Dr. Crane if he was more heroic is basically the portrayal that's been going on. So
Yeah, I like that, and again, I think that you did a good job of Samuel actually kind of feels like exactly what he's kind of like a more pompous, arrogant version of Dr. Crane because he's not afraid to literally unleash his experiments on anyone, and he's even more. It literally gone to his head to use that really bad joke.
literally, we gotta fix my fucking head.
Jesse, we need to fix my huge fucking head,
Jesse.
Yeah, I definitely.
Hey Rick, why the big blue guy? Bruce, I'm fucking homeless, Bruce.
Dude, I am just gonna say this. Crane, like I love Batman Begins, but Crane kind of gives off TASM vibes.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I can kind of see that. The funny thing was, like, if you've ever seen the tapes, like he originally went for Batman, but he was a little too short, and the way he said the lines was more like if he was. I don't really know how to describe it. It's just kind of emotionless. So I'm very glad they put him in that other role instead because he does a much better job than I think he would.
He's definitely good for the only live action portrayal of Scarecrow so far. So,
you know, for the only live action portrayal we have of Scarecrow, he isn't bad out. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess we'll see whether we'll see more of him in the future, either in the DCU or whatever.
Rise.
The Batman verse is going to be. Probably one of those we'll see more. But anyways, unless you guys have more to say, I think that's good for today's show. I'm glad that you came to talk to us today, Jettu. I think it's been really fun talking to you. It was a great project to work on, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Yep. Anyway, bye.
Yep, I think that's been it from us, everyone. Signing off from me and my co-host, Mr. Jordan Plunkett, and as always, stay funky FS fresh, everyone. Stay funky FS fresh. And wear your masks, please. We are still in crisis.
Yeah.
And remember, guys, Ayo the pizza here. Drop the drugs. It's okay. I got that weed card. Only a spoonful. Yeah, that should cover everything.
All right, yeah, I think that's everything. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in. We will see you guys next time.